Now, before I start this video, really, I want to remind everybody that these were really real people, and I'm going to obviously keep it light as we get into the video because that's my style, but I want you guys to know that I really feel for these victims of this plane crash. I'm going to play you a quick I re-edited it a little bit, but there was a man getting on the flight, the ill flight, and he was obviously excited and took a video of him getting on the plane. And I want you guys to see it because I want you to remember that the people that Tom Girardi's stealing from are the relatives of these people who ended up, I'm sure, likely disintegrated, people with hopes and dreams and things they wanted to do. And so anyway, I'll lighten it up, but I want to play this for you before we get started.
Ini bukan Pangkal Pinang. Pintu B5 turun tangan naik pintu bawah.
It's finally happened. Tom Girardi, David Lira, and Christopher Kamen indicted. But Christopher got 2 indictments. He's an overachiever, this guy. One was in California and the other one was in Illinois. All right, let's go. Let's get going. I'm going to take you through the indictment. I'm going to tell you about an asset that might interest the United States North District of Illinois. Good Illinois. We're going to give Illinois an applause. But where is California in indicting Tom Girardi and David Lira? I mean, there were other victims that are complaining about the same thing that the Lion Air victims are complaining about. So I just wonder where they are. Where's the Justice Department in California? Usually they're so like New York. They're in like very aggressive, so I don't know. It's weird. So the indictment is against Christopher Kamen, David Lira, and Tom Girardi. It does not implicate Erika Girardi in any way from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, except that it does mention that, you know, Tom Girardi was transferring money to pay American Express card bills, of which we know Erika's bills were paid, you know, via American Express. So she didn't apparently know anything, and this was what the feds have figured out at this point. Vindication, Erika, vindication. All right, so let's get into this indictment. So they start off the indictment. I'm going to read some to you. I'm going to show you some of it throughout the video, but they start off this indictment by establishing the banking, really, for how the government has looked at this. And they've said, look, David Lira was listed as a partner on the bank account that was, first of all, accepted the client money and then did the wrong thing with it. He was also listed as a partner of Girardi Keys on that banking. Christopher Kamen was doing wires, and he was on the banking and as a CFO figure. Tom Girardi was certainly on the banking as a partner and as a signer. So they start off with that. With that role, you should know what's going on. You should be, I guess, held accountable for what's happening. But they go a step further. The step further is to say, look, on top of that, you were corresponding with the clients and telling them lies that you knew were lies. Why did you know there were lies? Because there was a loan that all the money from this case was that you earned as Girardi Keys was going to pay this loan. And in fact, the money was sent directly to the loan company that you were supposed to get for your fees. And that was the deal you made with this loan company to get the money up front. And so you know, and you knew that when the money came in, it was all client money. There was no question about that. So you guys being aware of communication with the clients, or sending communication to the clients with excuses as to why the money wasn't being paid to them is an absolute outright lie. They also spend a lot of time in this indictment reminding people that, court-appointed officials like lawyers have a really strict, criteria in which they function for their clients. And this was, a massive abuse to what would be expected of an attorney in regards to client money. And they call that out. And then, of course, a reminder that, you should know better if you're an attorney. It's not like you can say, well, I didn't know. You knew, you know the law better than anyone. And you're supposed to have almost a higher ethical bar. But yeah, okay. So let's get into it. I'm going to read you the top most important parts of the indictment so you understand what the allegations are. So the first part of the indictment is them establishing that there were bank accounts that Girardi Keys paid their bills out of, and they also had an IOLTA trust account. And they go over the rules in California for this type account for attorneys. They say, in California, all funds received by a lawyer or law firm for the benefit of a client, including settlement funds, must be deposited into a client trust account at a bank. Such funds can be deposited into a non-segregated trust account known as an IOLTA account only if the deposited funds are nominal in amount, which these weren't, or are to be held for a short period of time. Girardi and Lira were authorized signatories on an IOLTA account maintained by Girardi Keys, and Lira was identified as a, quote, partner of Girardi Keys on that account. Cayman was authorized to initiate wire transfers from GK IOLTA account. The Cayman had online access to all information regarding this account. Now, another important thing that the prosecutor reminds everybody in this indictment, which I thought you would like to know, under the CRPC, lawyers must, number one, promptly notify their clients when they receive funds in which their clients have an interest. Number two, promptly distribute to their clients any undisputed funds that the clients are entitled to receive. And three, take reasonable remedial measures once they become aware that a person is or was engaged in criminal or fraudulent conduct with respect to legal proceedings in which the lawyer was involved. Now let's get into the story. On October 29, 2018, as we all know, Lions Air Flight 610 crashed into the Java Sea shortly after takeoff from Jakarta, Indonesia. All 189 people on board the aircraft were killed. The aircraft was manufactured by Boeing. Anyway, it goes on to talk about how, Girardi Keys represented several of the victims in this Lions Air crash with another attorney, and they were dealing with this matter out of Chicago court system, and they did manage to make a settlement of approximately $11 million with Boeing. Now, this part I want to show you. On or about the date set forth below in the approximate amounts indicated, Boeing's counsel wired settlement funds into GK's IOLTA account pursuant to the terms of the settlement agreements with the client victims. There is a list of the client victims. They're represented by A through E, the date in which the money was transferred, the amount of wire into GK's IOLTA amount, and the amount due to each client victim. Those wire transfers were net of GK's attorney's fees, specifically under the terms of the settlement for each of the client victims. The attorney's fees to which GK was entitled were separately wired by Boeing's counsel directly to lender A as a partial payment toward GK and Girardi's $8 million loan from lender A. As a result, GK was not entitled to retain any attorney fees from these settlement amounts. Instead, except for attorney's fee owed to law firm A, any costs incurred by GK up to 1% of the settlement amount, and any advance that GK had made to the client victims, all the funds that Boeing's counsel wired into GK's IOLTA were required to be distributed to the client victims as indicated in the above column labeled amount due to client victims. It was part of the scheme that Girardi, Cayman, and Lira knowingly misappropriated and caused to be misappropriated settlement funds belonging to the client victims by diverting those funds or causing those funds to be diverted from GK's IOLTA account for improper purposes. These improper purposes included, among other things, 1, paying GK's business and operating expenses, 2, funding GK's payroll, 3, paying American Express card bills, of which, just saying, Erika Girardi had a $12 million paid over time given, but okay. And number 4, funding settlements to other GK clients whose own settlement funds previously had been misappropriated by GK. The defendants accomplished the misappropriation of the client victims' funds by, among other things, making false statements and causing false statements to be made to the client victims regarding the status of their settlement funds and concealing and causing those misappropriations to be concealed from the client victims, law firm A, and the court. It was further part of the scheme that Cayman caused false descriptions to be written in the memorando section of those checks, including that the misappropriated funds were fees owed to GK from the Lion Air cases when, as the defendants knew, GK was not entitled to retain those funds as fees from the cases, and that the misappropriated funds were for miscellaneous case costs, when, as the defendant knew, those funds did not represent expenses relating to any case. It was further part of the scheme that Cayman, at Girardi's direction and with Lira's knowledge and assistance, fraudulently used the client victims' funds that had been misappropriated to GK's business account to pay GK's business and operating expenses, to fund GK's payroll, and to pay American Express card. Okay, so then to just continue, okay, the government goes on and they say you made excuses to the victims like you were being delayed because of COVID-19. You said that you could give them advances, but that you hadn't gotten all the money. You said this: we made an agreement with Boeing that all of the cases would be resolved. They gave us special authorization to distribute 50%. Lira and GK lawyer A received Girardi's letter before it was sent to victim B, and Lira reviewed and approved that letter. Cayman received that letter shortly after it was sent to victim B. Each of the defendants knew that there was no agreement with Boeing that prevented GK from distributing the settlement funds to victim B until, quote, all of the cases are resolved. That no special authorization was required from Boeing to distribute those funds to victim B, and that the reason the funds had not been distributed to victim B was because they were being misappropriated. The government goes on and says David Lira approved many of the letters that were distributed to the victims that were asking for more time or making up BS excuses as to why they couldn't send the money. For example, another one, there are some serious issues. I've been back east 4 times to get everything resolved. I think I need 2 more weeks. I will insist that at least we get the interest in 2 weeks if I cannot resolve it. All bullshit. I thought it'd be good to show you this on screen. On or about May 11, 2020, wire transfers from GK's IOLTA account to victim A of approximately $855,000, to victim B of approximately $1,010,000, to victim C approximately $862,500, and to victim D approximately $1,030,000. On or about July 6, 2020, wire transfers from GK's IOLTA account of $50,000 to each victims A through D, and on or about September 3, 2020, wire transfers from GK's IOLTA account to victim A of approximately $305,000, to victim B of approximately $460,000, and to victim C of approximately $312,500, and to victim D of approximately $460,000. Here's that last part I just read to you. Anyway, it also says, as a result of the scheme, the defendants caused the client victims to suffer losses of over $3 million. So the con here was that he made partial payments to the victims to keep them from taking action, to buy him more time, similar to a Ponzi scheme. And it worked for a while. And then the government throws 8 counts against them for wire fraud, for communication that was sent to these clients, for not following through with orders of the court. I don't want to read all those to you or this will be forever, but That's the gist. And then there's an interesting ending, which you might want to hear about. Here was the government's final finale ending. I love that thing. All right, the special. This is a forfeiture allegation. Ready? Upon conviction of an offense in violation of Title 18 United States Codes 13, Section 1343 is set forth in this indictment. Defendant Girardi, Cayman, and Lira shall forfeit to the United States of America any property which constitute is derived from proceeds obtained directly and indirectly as a result of the offense as provided in Title 18 U.S.C. Section 98181C and Title 28 United States Code 2461C. The property to be forfeited includes but is not limited to a personal money judgment in the amount of approximately $3,069,500. If any of the property described above as a result of any act or omission, property to be forfeited includes but is not limited to a personal money judgment in the amount of approximately $3,069,500. If any of the property described above as a result of any act or omission by a defendant cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third party, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, or has been commingled with any other property which cannot be divided without difficulty, the USA shall be entitled to forfeiture of substitute property as provided in Title 21 U.S.C. United States Code Section 853P. What does this mean? It means that if the government, for any reason, finds out that assets can't be located to make these victims whole, or it's been transferred, their assets have been transferred or sold or deposited with a third party, or they've been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court in another country, or the value of something has been diminished, whatever the reason is, which is listed in A through E, if you want to stop and read them, they can substitute other property for it. Or they can make you, by court order, bring property back into the jurisdiction so they can take it. So no matter what, they can get this money, in other words, for the victims. Now, this is going to be interesting, seeing how this plays out with the bankruptcy proceedings. That's a little bit above my pay grade. But I would say that, the government now is going to be, have a right to go after David Lira's personal assets. If Christopher Cayman purchased anything and had equity in anything, if there's money in bank accounts, like he was, buying stuff, property overseas, any of that stuff, the government's going to be able to get now. So they can go into the Bahamas and they could get Christopher Cayman's house he bought there if he hid money there, because, they've indicted him already on, moving $10 million illegally from the Girardi Keys accounts. Now they're going to be able to broaden the net of what they can collect from for the victims. And that's the bottom line here. And that's why that was the grand finale. So the big question is, will Tom Girardi's existing defense of Alzheimer's be able to get him out of this problem? And I think where the prosecutors are going to come from is going to be like, well, who was directing this money? Who was instructing this to happen? And if Tom Girardi in 2020 was of sound mind enough to be, intentionally lulling the clients or lying to the clients or instructing money to be paid towards bills with money that rightfully belonged to the clients, then they're going to say, sorry, Charlie, you're guilty of this. Now, he then will have to bring in a bunch of experts that are going to say, well, Alzheimer's might have made him forget his responsibilities, or, they're going to have to fight from that perspective. They're going to also have to start, he's going to have to prove that he has Alzheimer's now properly in a court of law to a jury. So, now it won't be just like a given that he has it with like a letter from an expert. Now they're going to say, okay, well, let's prove that he has Alzheimer's, and did it impact, his intent, right? Or was his intention really corrupt, sinister? And if it was, then you're guilty. And by the way, there's plenty of people with Alzheimer's in prison. I looked into it. The American Bar Association has made it a big topic this year. This is David Lira, and he has some assets, which is a good thing. By the way, you guys, this is the value that David Lira and Tom Girardi's daughter's house is valued at in Pasadena. So if they don't owe anything on the property, this could cover most of the victims' money. Anyway, I'm so glad that there's some justice happening, but this is not enough given the amount of activity that was so wrong done by Girardi Keys. So I hope that this is the beginning. This is out of Chicago. Would love to see something coming out of California. All right, you guys, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. You never know what you're going to get on my channel. Yay! Do you remember where you were when the arrest finally happened of Tom Girardi? I wish I could have seen him in the Alzheimer's home.